Welcome back to Firefox OS for developers, the platform HTML5 deserves. Today we're going to talk about something that gets me immensely excited, Web APIs. Web APIs basically mean that we make the hardware available for you in phones, available to you via JavaScript. Because that was always my big barrier, like, oh yeah, I want to have the accelerometer, I want to know if the phone is currently in portrait or landscape mode, and there was no JavaScript API for that. I had to write Java or I had to write Cocoa or whatever other native language the different platforms had. And with Web APIs, we've got proposals to the W3C and to other standards bodies to access the hardware on the device. So the first one that we did with that was geolocation, wasn't it?
Yeah. So and just to expand on that, when you're building a phone, a whole phone environment that is at its core HTML5 or a web environment, you need those APIs because, of course, if your home screen is a web page or a web application, you need to be able to tell the user how much battery they have left, or whether or not they're connected to Wi-Fi, or how much signal they have. So you need APIs into the hardware in order to be able to do that. And of course, application developers can use those same APIs to add capabilities to their applications that we might not even know or might not even have imagined. So geolocation is a really good example. That was one of the first, I would say, device APIs that came to the web. It needed to be brought to some standards organization. It ended up, we created a W3C working group, and I was involved in that. I think it's a real success story for fast-tracking something through the standards process, and it quickly became pervasive, and now location is just part of the web. We just take it for granted at this point.
It's interesting because it was in Firefox 3.5, actually, was one of the first browsers to support it, and people are still coming up to me now and saying, like, can I use geolocation in JavaScript?
Yeah.
It seems like a lot of support, non-support by certain browsers actually limits that kind of innovation, but the good thing about all these web APIs is that they're very, very simple APIs. They all have an on-success handler, they all have an on-error handler, and as a good developer, I should use both and not just hope everything worked. And that's basically it. So you put like if navigator geolocation around your code, and then browsers that don't have it should get a fallback to like enter your address or something like that.
Yeah, indeed.
But the functionality is the same for all of them. And there's great stuff in there. There's the vibration, for example, that allows you to let the phone vibrate, which originally is like, okay, why would we need this? But you told me earlier there's some good use cases for that.
So at one of the hacks that we've been running, there was a company that produced an app which is basically cycle directions. So we're all used to GPS is telling you where to go and to turn right here and turn left there. But when you're on a bicycle, you can't be looking at a screen, and actually you can't. It's really not safe to have headphones in as well, because you want to have. I know as a London cycler, this is something really important. So, but if you could have something that vibrates and provides you a different vibration sequence depending on turn right or turn left or other instructions, then you could actually enter in a destination into the phone and then cycle along, and then through the vibration API, the application is telling you where to go, which I just think is ingenious. So I want to see more things like that where we're seeing innovation happen, really.
Yeah, it's also an accessibility thing. For a blind user, it makes total sense as well. And there were hardware that people built in the past that had these kind of features that was really expensive. Now you could do it with any phone. Mm-hmm. And the good thing about the web APIs is as well that they're trickling into the other browsers as well. For example, I built a game with vibration when there's an error. And it worked fine on Firefox OS. I put it on my Android, and I didn't know that Chrome supports it already, but it does.
Yeah.
So I did not have to write any extra code. I just set navigator.vibrate 500 milliseconds, and both of my phones made a vibration error basically when I did something wrong in the game. And that's haptic feedback that makes it much more playable. Because otherwise, like, just looking on a small screen and touching things is not as cool as just getting like, okay, I've done something wrong. I've got a vibration going on here. There's something going on that's differently there. Now, the issue is that not all of these can be actually accessed by JavaScript without a review. Like, we cannot allow you, for example, to make telephone calls or text messages, because otherwise you would write a puzzle game and call very expensive telephone numbers in the background.
This is one of the main mobile malware problems, right? Is applications that hijack your telephone, hijack your SMS, and spend your money without your knowledge. So I think that when we're talking about mobile applications, it's really important that we do have those controls somehow.
So in Firefox OS, we actually fixed that by having 3 different ways of apps, 3 different levels of apps. We've got the normal web apps, we've got privileged apps. These are the ones that have to be packaged up and sent through the marketplace and hosted by Mozilla, because we don't control your server, so we don't know if a bad person has taken over your server and sends out malware for you. You don't want to have that problem. And then there are certified apps, which are the ones that only Mozilla and partners are building, which go fully to the metal of the phone, which is something where Telefónica, for example, worked with us to get, for example, your data traffic monitoring.
Coming back to use cases and how developers might use these APIs, including the more privileged APIs or certification-required APIs, imagine right now, if you're visiting your airline website, right, on your phone, now you want to talk to a customer service agent, you've got a button to press, and your regular smartphone experience would be to then pop you out into the dialer application, right, where now you're no longer within that website, you're in the dialer, and so you've completely lost the context of where you are. What I would like to see, and this hasn't been done yet, but what I'd like to see is brands like that making use of the telephony API or other kinds of APIs to produce an airline branded, or other branded telephony experience. So they're calling a customer service agent, but they're still inside of the application, which is a web application.
Well, we're going to come back to that in the next video when we talk about web activities, because that's basically giving you that functionality instead of just sending you to the dialer app. When you hang up on the dialer app, you go back to your JavaScript and you get an object how long the call was and if it was successful and these kind of things. So you've got a good loop for that.
Yeah.
So the main differentiator that you have to think about is where you want to have your app. If you want to host it yourself and have full control over it, but then it's also up to you to basically keep your app secure, and we don't give you access to the things that might leak out that our users should not give out to the public.
And I think it's important to note that the majority of these APIs that we're talking about that web developers are going to want to have are not the kind of privileged APIs that they're only available to Mozilla and partners. So things like raw TCP sockets API, that's something that's only available to Mozilla and partners. But something like IndexedDB or settings API, you do need certification, but it's on a privileged API.
And the main differentiator as well to other platforms is that all the HTML5 features that come from HTML5 and friends out of the box work. Yeah. So you have an app cache that works. You have an IndexedDB access without actually worrying about if IndexedDB is supported, and you can do offlining of your app rather easily. It's only getting better. It's what I love about web APIs, and I hope you take a look at them, is that I've got so many more toys to play with as a JavaScript developer. It's just gorgeous. So let's play with those, and let's file bugs for all the other browsers as well to start supporting them. So that's it from us today. See you soon.